Picture this. You're standing in the filthiest corner of the merchant district, where the cobblestones are slick with waste and the air tastes like desperation. This is where our story begins, in a place where even rats think twice before scavenging. And right there, hunched over a cooking pot that's seen better centuries, is Kaelen. Now, Kaelen isn't your typical protagonist. There's no prophecy about him, no secret noble bloodline, no mysterious power awakening. He's just a guy trying not to starve, and barely succeeding at that. His cooking stall consists of 3 cracked clay pots, a fire pit made from stolen bricks, and a wooden sign so weather-beaten you can't even read what it once said. His clothes are more patch than original fabric. His hair is matted with grease and smoke, and his hands bear the scars of 10,000 cuts from cheap knives and cheaper ingredients. The marketplace towers around him like judgmental giants. Directly across the plaza, you can see the other food vendors, their stalls pristine and proper, serving customers who actually have money to spend. They eye Kaelen with the kind of contempt usually reserved for disease-carrying vermin. And honestly, in this world he might as well be. Because in the kingdom of Ethermore, where magic flows through the very air and mages rule from crystal towers, a man with no magical ability is less than nothing. He's not even a footnote in the grand story of civilization. Every morning, Kaelen wakes up in the alley behind his stall. Not because he's lazy, but because he quite literally lives there. 3 years ago, he had a room in a boarding house. Then the rent doubled because the landlord's daughter became an apprentice mage, and suddenly they were too good for poor tenants. 2 years ago, he slept in a shared basement with 7 other people. Then that building was condemned to make room for a new magical academy dormitory. 1 year ago, he had a spot under a bridge. Then the city guard cleared it out because some noble's daughter complained about the smell during her morning ride. So now he sleeps on cobblestones, uses his cooking pot as a pillow, and tries to ignore the way his joints ache every single morning. He's 23 years old and feels like he's 60. But every day, without fail, he lights his fire pit, fills his pot with water from the public fountain, and starts cooking. Because that's all he knows how to do. That's all he has left. On this particular morning, the morning everything changed, Kaelen is cooking what he generously calls mystery stew. The mystery being what's actually in it. There's some kind of root vegetable that he found growing between building foundations. A few strips of something that might be meat, but also might be some kind of leather someone threw away. A handful of herbs that a sympathetic farmhand tossed him because they were too wilted to sell at market. And water. Lots of water, because water is free and it makes everything stretch further. He's stirring this concoction, watching the gray foam rise to the surface, when he hears the sound that makes every street vendor's blood run cold. Horse hooves on cobblestones, not the regular clip-clop of merchant wagons or farmers' carts. No, this is the precise, measured cadence of purebred horses, the kind that cost more than Kaelen could earn in 5 lifetimes, the kind that carry nobles. A procession passes by his stall without even slowing down. 6 guards in gleaming silver armor, their swords inscribed with magical runes that shimmer in the morning light. In the center, a carriage made from what looks like solid crystal, pulsing with soft blue enchantments. And visible through the transparent walls, a young woman about Kaelen's age, dressed in robes that probably cost more than his entire neighborhood. She's reading a book that hovers in front of her face, the pages turning themselves. One of the guards makes eye contact with Kaelen. Just for a second. And in that moment, Kaelen sees everything he needs to see. The disgust, the dismissal, the absolute certainty that Kaelen is not a person who matters, who will ever matter, who could ever possibly matter in any meaningful way. The guard spits on the ground in Kaelen's direction, not quite hitting him, but close enough to make the point. The procession continues on, heading toward the massive crystalline structure visible in the distance, its towers scraping the clouds themselves. Celestera Academy, the most prestigious magical institution in the known world, where legends are trained. where heroes are forged, where people like Kaelen will never, ever be allowed to set foot. He goes back to stirring his stew. What else can he do? Getting angry won't change anything. Crying won't put food in his stomach. So he stirs, and he waits for customers who probably won't come, and he tries not to think about how his stomach is eating itself from hunger. That's when she appears. She's old. Ancient, really. Her face is a roadmap of wrinkles, her back bent like a question mark, her eyes clouded with cataracts. She's wearing robes that might have been white once, maybe 50 years ago. Now they're the color of old paper, stained and torn. She shuffles toward Kaelen's stall using a walking stick that's actually just a broken broom handle. "Boy," she croaks, her voice like rocks grinding together. "You sell food?" Kaelen blinks. He hasn't had a customer in 3 days. Yes. Yes, I have stew. It's quite good, actually." It's not. It's terrible. But he's not about to tell a potential customer that. The old woman peers into his pot with those cloudy eyes. She sniffs. She makes a face that suggests she's smelling something dead. "How much?" 2 copper coins for a bowl. That's actually expensive for what he's offering, but he's desperate. She reaches into her robes with a shaking hand and produces 2 copper coins. They're not even real copper. They're some kind of tin alloy that someone painted copper-colored. But Kaelen takes them anyway, because fake coins spend just as well as real ones if the person receiving them doesn't look too closely. He ladles the gray sludge into a clay bowl that has a crack sealed with tree sap. The old woman takes it, studies it with an expression that could be disgust or might just be her face, and then says something that will echo in Kaelen's mind for the rest of his life. "You have the sight, don't you, boy?" Kaelen freezes. I don't know what you mean, ma'am." The sight, the knowing, the way you understand what things truly are beneath what they appear to be. She taps the side of her head with one gnarled finger. "You might not have magic flowing through your veins, but you've got something else, something rarer." "Ma'am, I'm just a cook, a bad one." She cackles at that, revealing exactly 3 teeth. "Just a cook. Listen to this one. Boy, I've traveled this world for 97 years. I've seen archmages level mountains. I've watched legendary heroes slay dragons. I've witnessed emperors crowned and kingdoms fall. And I'm telling you right now, standing in front of your pathetic little stall with your terrible food, that you have a gift that's worth more than all of it." Kaelen doesn't know what to say. This woman is clearly insane. But she's also the first person in months to speak to him like he's human, so he's not about to argue. "Tell me, boy, if I asked you to make me a potion that could cure any disease, could you do it?" "I'm not a mage, ma'am. I can't make potions." "That's not what I asked. I asked if you could. Not if you know how. Not if you've been trained. Could you if you tried?" Something about the way she asks the question makes Kaelen actually think about it. And as he thinks, as he looks down at his gray stew bubbling away, something clicks in his mind. It's not a thought exactly. It's more like a recognition. Like when you see someone's face and suddenly remember you met them years ago in a completely different context. I don't know," he admits. "But if someone gave me the right ingredients, and if I understood what the disease was doing to the body, then maybe I could make something that would help. Not with magic. Just with understanding. Knowing which things balance which other things." The old woman's smile spreads across her face like sunrise. There it is. That's the sight. "Boy, do you know what alchemists are?" "Mages who make potions and elixirs." "Wrong. Alchemy isn't magic. It's older than magic. It's the understanding of how things work together, how they change each other, how they can be combined to create something entirely new. Magic is like shouting at the universe until it does what you want. Alchemy is like whispering to it, like asking nicely, like working with it instead of against it. And you, my boy, you're an alchemist who doesn't know he's an alchemist. She reaches into her robes again, and this time produces a small leather pouch. She sets it on Kaelen's makeshift counter with a heavy thunk that sounds like it contains something valuable. Inside that pouch is a seed. It's called wormroot. It doesn't grow in this kingdom anymore, hasn't for 200 years, but I traveled very far to get it, and now I'm giving it to you. Kaelen stares at the pouch. Why? Because I'm old and I'm dying, and I've been searching for someone like you for 50 years. Someone who has the sight but hasn't been ruined by magical training. Someone who still thinks like a chef. Like someone who knows that the best meals come from understanding ingredients, not from forcing them to be something they're not. She pushes the pouch toward him. Plant it, tend it, and when it grows, use it. Make something, anything. Follow your instincts, and maybe, just maybe, you'll realize what you're truly capable of. Before Kaelen can respond, before he can even process what's happening, the old woman turns and shuffles away into the morning crowd. She moves faster than seems possible for someone her age, and within seconds she's gone, vanished into the flow of merchants and farmers and apprentices heading to their daily business. Kaelen looks down at the leather pouch. He shouldn't open it. It's probably some kind of scam. Old people don't just hand out magical seeds to street vendors. That's not how the world works. But his hands are already moving, untying the leather cord, opening the pouch, and there inside, nestled in what looks like moss, is a seed the size of his thumbnail. It's dark purple, almost black, and it seems to shimmer with an inner light that might be his imagination, but also might not be. He doesn't plant it immediately. He's not stupid. He hides it in his bundle of spare rags that night, and for 3 days, he tries to forget about it. But he can't. Because every time he cooks his terrible stew, every time he throws together whatever garbage ingredients he can find, he feels something. An itch in the back of his mind. A knowing. A sense that there's a recipe he's supposed to be following, but can't quite remember. On the 4th day, he gives in. Behind his stall, in a crack between 2 buildings where a little soil has accumulated, he plants the wormroot seed. He doesn't expect anything to happen. Seeds take weeks to germinate, right? Everyone knows that. The wormroot sprouts in 6 hours. By nightfall, it's as tall as his knee. By morning, it's reached his waist and is covered in leaves that look like they're made of purple crystal. The root system has broken through the soil surface and is clearly visible, pulsing with that same strange inner light. And the smell. Oh, the smell is incredible. It's like nothing Kaelen has ever experienced, like thunderstorms and honey and earth after rain, all mixed together. He knows he should be scared. Magic plants appearing overnight should terrify him. But instead, he's fascinated. He can sense the properties of this plant the same way a sommelier might sense the notes in a fine wine. This root, if ground up and heated to exactly the right temperature, would reduce fever. Those leaves, if steeped in hot water, would ease pain. That crystalline formation on the stem, if dried and powdered, would accelerate healing. Without quite planning to, Kaelen finds himself harvesting parts of the plant. Just small pieces. Nothing that would kill it. He acts on pure instinct, selecting exactly the right parts, preparing them exactly the right ways. He doesn't have proper alchemical equipment. He has his cooking pots, his knives, his fire pit. So he uses those. He starts with something simple. A man down the street has had a cough for weeks, a wet, painful thing that keeps everyone awake at night. Kaelen takes a small piece of wormroot leaf, some of the wild herbs he usually uses in his stew, and a fungus that grows on the north side of buildings. He boils them together, reducing the liquid down to a thick syrup that glows faintly green. When he brings it to the coughing man, he's almost apologetic. I made you some medicine. It's probably stupid. It's definitely not real medicine because I'm not a mage or anything. But maybe it'll help? You don't have to take it if you don't want to. The man, desperate enough to try anything, drinks it down. And within 5 minutes, the cough that's plagued him for weeks simply stops. Just stops. like someone flipped a switch. Word spreads fast in the poor quarter. By the next morning, there are 6 people waiting at Kaelen's stall. They don't want his terrible stew. They want medicine. A woman with a rash that won't heal. A child with a fever. An old man whose joints hurt so badly he can barely walk. An apprentice who works in the tannery and has chemical burns on his hands. Kaelen treats them all. Not with magic. He doesn't have magic. He treats them with understanding. With the sight, as the old woman called it. He makes salves and syrups, poultices and powders. He uses his cooking skills, his knowledge of how flavors interact, and applies it to healing. Because healing, he's starting to realize, is just another kind of recipe. You identify what's wrong, figure out what balances it, and combine ingredients in the right way. By the end of the week, there are 30 people showing up every day. By the end of the month, there's a line that stretches around the block. Kaelen starts charging because he has to eat and he needs to buy more ingredients. But he charges fairly. A few copper coins. Sometimes less if people can't afford it. Sometimes nothing if they're truly desperate. That's when the trouble starts. It starts small. Other vendors complaining that he's stealing their business. City guards coming by to ask if he has a proper merchant license. He does, barely. A piece of paper that cost him 3 months of savings and is technically only valid for selling food, not medicine. Then it escalates. Someone breaks his pots one night, just smashes them while he's sleeping a few alleys over. He has to spend precious coins replacing them. A week later, someone steals his wormroot plant. He finds it the next day, dying in an alley, deliberately pulled up by its roots and tossed aside. He manages to save it, replanting it carefully, nursing it back to health. But it's a warning. The warnings keep coming. A friendly visit from a local gang leader suggesting he needs protection, and protection costs money. An official notice from the Merchants Guild saying he's operating outside proper channels. A visit from an actual mage, some petty enchanter who works in the wealthy quarter, demanding to know where he learned alchemy without formal training. I didn't learn it, Kaelen tries to explain. I just know, like I know how to cook. That's impossible, the mage sneers. Alchemy requires years of study, magical talent, and expensive equipment. Street trash can't just know alchemy. But Kaelen does know. And people keep coming. Because his medicine works. It works better than the expensive potions sold in the magical shops. It works better than the remedies from trained alchemists, who learned from books instead of from understanding. And that makes him dangerous. The real crisis happens on a rainy afternoon, 3 months after the old woman's visit. A man stumbles into the market district, carried by 2 friends. He's pale as death, sweating despite the cold rain, his skin taking on a greenish tint that Kaelen recognizes immediately. Marsh fever, a disease that kills within days, that has no known cure, that mages have been trying to defeat for centuries. Please, one of the friends begs. Please, they say you can heal anything. My brother, he's dying. The healers at the temple say there's nothing they can do. They say we should just make him comfortable. But he has children. He has a wife, please. Kaelen knows he should say no. Marsh fever is beyond him. It has to be. It kills trained healers. It killed his own mother when he was 12. There's no recipe for this. No simple combination of ingredients that will fix it. But he looks at this dying man, at his desperate friends, and he can't say no. So he nods. I'll try. I can't promise anything, but I'll try. He works through the night. He uses every part of his wormroot plant that he can harvest without killing it. He adds things he's never combined before. Nightshade, which is poisonous, but in tiny amounts can reduce fever. Silver moss, which grows only in the deepest parts of the forest, and is usually impossible to get, but which he trades 3 months of his saved coins to buy from a desperate forager. Crystallized honey from storm bees, insects so dangerous that most people won't go near their hives. He doesn't follow a recipe because there is no recipe for this. He follows instinct. He follows the sight. He combines things in ways that shouldn't work, heating them to temperatures that should destroy them, adding them in orders that violate every rule of conventional alchemy. His hands move with a certainty he doesn't quite understand, measuring by feel rather than by weight, knowing exactly when something is ready not by time, but by smell and color, and some sixth sense he can't name. The result is a liquid that shifts colors as you look at it. Blue, then purple, then green, then back to blue. It smells like rain and smoke and something else, something indefinable. Kaelen looks at it and knows, absolutely knows, that this will either save the dying man or kill him faster. There's no middle ground. He brings it to where the sick man is lying on a makeshift bed in his friend's house. The man is barely conscious now, his breathing shallow, his skin the color of pond scum. Kaelen carefully lifts his head and pours the potion down his throat, drop by precious drop. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the man convulses, his back arching off the bed, his eyes rolling back in his head. The friends shout, thinking Kaelen has killed him. But Kaelen watches, fascinated, as the greenish tint fades from the man's skin, as his breathing deepens and regularizes, as consciousness returns to his eyes. Within an hour, he's sitting up. Within a day, he's walking. Within a week, he's back at his job, healthy and strong, with no trace of the disease that should have killed him. And that's when everything changes. Because the man Kaelen saved? His brother is a merchant who trades with noble houses. And that merchant tells a noble. And that noble tells someone at Celestera Academy. And suddenly, people are very, very interested in the street vendor who can cure the incurable. 3 days after the marsh fever cure, Kaelen is cooking his morning stew, which he still makes even though nobody buys it anymore because old habits die hard, when 6 guards appear at his stall. Not city guards. These are wearing the silver and blue of Celestera Academy, their armor covered in protective enchantments that make the air shimmer around them. "You are Kaelen the vendor?" the lead guard asks, his hand resting casually on his sword hilt. Kaelen's mouth goes dry. "Yes?" "You are to come with us. The Academy Council wishes to speak with you." "About what?" "About the fact that you're practicing alchemy without a license. About the fact that you've been creating potions that should be impossible for someone with no magical talent. About the fact that you're either a prodigy the likes of which hasn't been seen in 1,000 years, or you're a fraud who's been scamming people, and the council intends to determine which." Kaelen looks at his stall, his pots, his fire pit, his tiny patch of soil where the wormroot grows. This is everything he owns in the world. "Can I bring anything?" The guard looks around at Kaelen's pathetic belongings, and something like pity flickers across his face. "Bring whatever. You can carry. You won't be coming back here." That sentence could mean a lot of things. It could mean he's being arrested. It could mean he's being recruited. It could mean he's being executed. Kaelen decides not to ask which. He carefully digs up his wormroot plant, roots and all, and wraps it in burlap. He grabs his leather pouch of dried herbs, his 2 best knives, and one of his cooking pots. Everything else he leaves behind. Let the other vendors fight over it. Let someone else take his spot. He won't need it anymore, one way or another. The guards lead him through the city, and for the first time in his life, Kaelen walks through the noble quarter. The streets here are actually clean. The buildings are made of white stone that practically glows in the sunlight. There are fountains everywhere, crystal clear water that nobody has to fight over because there's more than enough for everyone. There are gardens with flowers that probably cost more per bloom than Kaelen used to make in a year. And there, rising up like a mountain made of light, is Celestera Academy. It's even more impressive up close. The main tower has to be 500 feet tall, built from some kind of crystal that refracts light in impossible ways, creating rainbows that dance across its surface. There are smaller towers branching off from the main one, connected by bridges made of what looks like solidified air. Students walk between them, their robes pristine, their faces confident, carrying themselves like people who have never doubted they matter. Kaelen, in his stained clothes, carrying a burlap-wrapped plant and a cooking pot, has never felt more out of place in his life. The guards lead him through massive gates that open at their approach, across a courtyard where the grass is so perfect it looks painted, upstairs carved from white marble, and finally into a chamber that takes his breath away. It's circular, easily 100 feet across, with a domed ceiling that shows the sky above as if there's no roof at all. Around the perimeter sit 12 figures in robes of various colors, each one seated on a throne that hovers 3 feet off the ground. These are the Council of Archmages, the most powerful mages in the kingdom, the people who run Celestera Academy, and, arguably, run most of the kingdom itself. At the center of the chamber stands a single chair. Not a throne, just a wooden chair. It's clearly meant for Kaelen. "Sit," commands a woman with white hair and robes the color of fresh blood. She looks about 60, but with mages you can never tell. She might be 200 for all Kaelen knows. He sits. The chair is uncomfortable. That's probably intentional. Another archmage, this one a young man who can't be more than 30, wearing robes of deep green, leans forward. "State your name and occupation." "Kaelen, I was a food vendor. Now I guess I'm a medicine vendor? I'm not really sure anymore." "You guess?" The young archmage's eyebrows rise. "You're not sure what you do?" "I cook things," Kaelen says honestly. "Sometimes they're food, sometimes they're medicine, but the process is pretty much the same." One of the archmages, an elderly man with a beard that reaches his waist, actually laughs at that. "The process is the same. He says making soup and creating alchemical cures is the same process. I haven't heard something that naive in decades." The red-robed woman silences him with a look. "Kaelen, you recently cured a man of marsh fever. Is this correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "Marsh fever has no cure. The disease is magical in nature, created centuries ago during the plague wars. It adapts to any remedy, making it impossible to treat with conventional alchemy. The best healers in the kingdom have attempted to cure it. The Alchemical Guild has spent fortunes researching it. Even I, with 300 years of study, cannot cure marsh fever. Yet you, a street vendor with no training, claim to have cured it. How?" Kaelen hesitates. How does he explain? I understood what it was doing. The disease was eating iron from the blood, right? Making the body unable to carry air. And it was creating toxins that the liver couldn't process. So I made something that temporarily replaced the iron in a different form that the disease couldn't recognize, and something else that gave the liver the tools to process the toxins faster than the disease could make them. Then the body's own healing could catch up. The chamber is silent. Every archmage is staring at him. Finally, the red-robed woman speaks. "That is exactly correct. That is precisely what marsh fever does, which we only understood after 2 centuries of research. And your solution, while crude, is theoretically sound. But you should not be able to know this. You have no magical talent. We checked. You're not even capable of sensing magical energy, let alone manipulating it. So I ask you again, how?" "I see it," Kaelen says, struggling to put instinct into words. "Not with magic. I see how things work together. How they balance, how they fight or support each other. It's like when you taste a dish and you know it needs salt or acid or something sweet to balance the bitter. I look at a disease and I see what's out of balance, then I find ingredients that bring it back." "The sight," whispers another archmage, an ancient-looking woman with skin like old paper. "We thought that was a myth, a story from before the age of magic." "What's the sight?" asks the young green-robed archmage. The ancient woman's eyes don't leave Kaelen. In the time before magic, when humans were weak and the world was ruled by dragons and worse things, there were those who could understand the fundamental nature of matter. Not through magic, which didn't exist yet, but through pure perception. They could look at a substance and know its properties. They could combine things in ways that shouldn't work, but did because they understood them at a level deeper than magic. We called them the first alchemists. But that was 10,000 years ago. The gift was supposed to have died out when magic awakened in humanity. Apparently not, the red-robed woman says dryly. She stands from her throne, which descends to the ground as she does. She walks toward Kaelen, her steps echoing in the vast chamber. Boy, we are going to give you a test. If you pass, you will be admitted to Celestera Academy as a special student. You will learn proper alchemy, proper technique, proper theory. If you fail, you will be imprisoned for practicing illegal magic and fraud. Do you understand? I understand, ma'am. But I should tell you, I probably can't do things the way a normal alchemist does them. I don't have magic. We don't expect you to do things the normal way. In fact, we're counting on you not to. She gestures and a servant appears carrying a tray. On it are 3 empty vials and what looks like a piece of parchment. You have until sunrise tomorrow. In these 3 vials, you will create 3 potions. The first must restore lost vitality. The second must grant temporary resistance to fire. The third must enhance physical strength. The recipes for all 3 are on this parchment. She holds up the parchment, and Kaelen sees that it's covered in complex alchemical formulas, magical diagrams, and instructions written in a language he doesn't even recognize. But ma'am, I can't read this. I know, that's the test. True alchemists don't need recipes. They understand what needs to be done and do it. If you're real, you'll succeed. If you're a fraud who's been getting lucky, you'll fail. The guards will show you to a laboratory. You'll find ingredients there. Everything you need should be available. Begin when you're ready. The guards lead him out. Lead him through corridors of crystal and light, past classrooms where students practice spells that make reality bend, past libraries that seem to go on forever, past gardens where plants grow that Kaelen has only dreamed of, and finally, to a small laboratory at the base of one of the smaller towers. It's the size of his entire living space used to be, back when he had one. Stone floors, stone walls, a high ceiling with windows that let in natural light. There are shelves lined with jars and bottles, each one labeled in that same unreadable language. There's a workbench with proper alchemical equipment. Burners that maintain perfect heat. Mortars and pestles made from materials he doesn't recognize. Scales that can measure to the 100th of a grain. And there's a bed in the corner. An actual bed. With blankets. Kaelen sets down his wormroot plant, his knives, his cooking pot. He looks at all this proper equipment and feels a wave of inadequacy. He's never used gear like this. He doesn't know what half of it does. He can't read the labels on any of the ingredients. But the old woman's words come back to him. You have the sight. Not magic, not training, just understanding. So he closes his eyes and opens them again, this time really looking at the laboratory, and suddenly the labels don't matter. He can sense what's in each jar. He can feel the properties of each substance like they're radiating information directly into his mind. This jar contains concentrated sunlight, somehow captured and stored. That one has powdered dragon scale, which isn't actually magic but is incredibly dense with minerals. This bottle holds distilled storm water, water that fell during a lightning strike and absorbed some of the electrical energy. He starts with vitality restoration. That's the easiest, conceptually. The body loses vitality when it's damaged, when it's sick, when it's exhausted. To restore it, you need to give the body what it's missing. Minerals, energy, the raw materials of life. He picks up jar after jar, not reading labels but trusting his instincts. He takes a pinch of this, a drop of that. He uses his cooking pot instead of the fancy alchemical equipment because he understands his pot. He knows exactly how it conducts heat, exactly how liquids behave in it, exactly what temperatures it reaches at different fire levels. He works through the night. Not because it takes that long, but because he makes each potion 3 times, adjusting and refining until it feels right. Until the color is perfect, the smell is perfect, the consistency is perfect. He doesn't use recipes or formulas. He uses taste, smell, touch, and that indefinable 6th sense that tells him when something is correct. The vitality potion ends up being a clear liquid with golden flecks suspended in it. It smells like honey and earth. When he holds it up to the light, it seems to glow from within. The fire resistance potion is trickier. Fire isn't just heat. It's transformation, destruction, energy at its most chaotic. To resist it, you need something that can absorb energy, store it, redirect it. He uses his worm root for this, just a small cutting. He combines it with volcanic ash, crystallized water from a cold spring, and something else. Something the Academy's stores shouldn't even have. A powder made from the shed skin of a salamander, a creature that lives in fire. The result is a thick, orange paste that feels cool to the touch even though it's been heated. When he holds his hand near a candle flame while wearing a bit of it on his finger, the flame actually bends away, repelled. The strength enhancement is hardest. Strength isn't just about muscles, it's about leverage, about efficiency, about the body using energy optimally. He needs something that doesn't just pump someone full of power, but helps them use their existing power better. He spends hours on this one, testing combinations, rejecting batch after batch because they don't feel right. Finally, just before dawn, he creates something that works. A dark red liquid that tastes bitter and seems to vibrate in its container. He tests a tiny drop on himself and feels his muscles suddenly respond faster, move more efficiently. Not stronger in the sense of raw force, but stronger in the sense of capability. When sunrise comes, he has 3 vials filled and ready. He hasn't slept. His hands are stained with a dozen different substances. His clothes smell like a combination of every ingredient in the laboratory. But he's done. The guards come to collect him. They lead him back to the council chamber, where all 12 archmages wait. The red-robed woman takes his 3 vials, studies them, and then does something Kaelen doesn't expect. She drinks a bit of the vitality potion. Her eyes widen. This is perfect. This is better than perfect. This is better than what I could make, and I've been brewing vitality potions for 200 years. She looks at Kaelen with something that might be respect, might be fear, might be both. How did you stabilize the solar essence without burning off the mineral content? I don't know what solar essence is, ma'am. But there was this jar that felt like sunshine, and it wanted to evaporate when heated. So I added something that wanted to absorb heat instead, and they balanced each other. The young green-robed archmage tests the fire resistance potion by coating his hand and sticking it directly into a brazier of magical fire. His hand doesn't burn. The flames don't even seem to touch him. Remarkable. And you used wormroot? That plant is so volatile it usually explodes when exposed to heat. It does if you heat it wrong, Kaelen explains, but if you heat it slowly and talk to it. Talk to it? Not literally talk. But you have to treat it gently, let it know you're not a threat. Plants are living things. They respond to how you handle them. The ancient woman who mentioned the site earlier is the one who tests the strength potion. She's so old she needs help walking normally. But after one sip, she straightens, her eyes clearing, her movements suddenly fluid. She picks up a stone paperweight that probably weighs 50 pounds and lifts it with one hand like it's made of cork. It doesn't add strength, she says wonderingly. It unlocks it. It removes the limiters the body places on itself, the restrictions that prevent injury. But somehow, impossibly, it does so without causing the damage that usually results. This shouldn't be possible. The body's limiters exist for a reason. They exist because the body doesn't trust itself, Kaelen says. But if you give it the tools to repair damage faster, if you support the joints and muscles while they work harder, then the limiters can be relaxed safely. It's temporary, maybe 6 hours. Then the body goes back to normal, but without harm. The council chamber is silent again. The 12 most powerful mages in the kingdom are staring at a street vendor who just did in one night what they spend decades teaching students to do. Finally, the red-robed woman speaks. You pass, obviously, extraordinarily, unprecedentedly. You will be admitted to Celestera Academy as a special student. You will have access to our ingredient stores, our libraries, our laboratories. You will attend classes, though I suspect you'll end up teaching more than learning. You will live in student dormitories, eat in the dining halls, and be subject to the same rules as every other student. Do you accept? Kaelen thinks about his alley, his broken pots, his empty stomach. Yes, ma'am, I accept. Good. Because you don't actually have a choice. If you'd refused, we'd have imprisoned you anyway. Someone with your abilities unsupervised is too dangerous to leave wandering around the kingdom. She smiles, but it's not a comforting smile. Welcome to Celestera Academy, Kaelen. Try not to blow anything up. They give him a room. An actual room, with 4 walls and a door that locks, and a window that looks out over the academy grounds. There's a bed with a mattress, blankets, a pillow. There's a desk and a chair. There's a chest for belongings, though he doesn't have enough to fill it. There's even a small adjoining room with a basin for washing. Kaelen stands in the center of this room, his room, and he doesn't know what to do. He's so used to being alert, being ready to run, being prepared for the moment someone tries to take what little he has. But here he can just be. He can sleep without worrying about waking up to find his things stolen or his throat cut. He can eat without wondering where his next meal will come from. He sits on the bed experimentally. It's soft. Softer than anything he's ever sat on. He lies down, just for a moment, just to test it. He wakes up 12 hours later, shocked that he slept that long, even more shocked that nothing bad happened while he did. There's food waiting outside his door when he opens it. Someone left a tray with bread, cheese, fruit, and some kind of meat pie. Real food. Food that doesn't taste like desperation and garbage. There's also a note. Report to Lecture Hall 3 after you've eaten. Your orientation begins today. Archmage Ilara. That must be the red-robed woman. At least now he knows her name. He eats slowly, savoring every bite, still half convinced this is a dream or a trick or something that will be taken away. Then he dresses in the clean clothes that were also left for him, simple student robes in the academy colors, and makes his way through the crystalline corridors trying to find Lecture Hall 3. He gets lost approximately 7 times. The academy is enormous, and half of it doesn't make physical sense. Corridors that loop back on themselves, stairs that go down but somehow end up taking you higher, doors that open to different rooms depending on which direction you approach from. Students pass him, eyeing his confused expression with amusement, but none of them help. He's clearly an outsider. Finally, he finds Lecture Hall 3, a massive chamber with tiered seating rising up on all sides of a central demonstration area. There are already 50 students in attendance, all around his age, all wearing robes far finer than his. They fall silent when he enters, turning to stare. He knows what they see. A guy who's still too thin despite yesterday's meal. Someone whose hair isn't styled, whose posture isn't confident, whose entire bearing screams poverty. He's walking proof that not everyone at Celestera Academy comes from money and breeding. Archmage Ilara is already there, standing in the demonstration area. Ah, Kaelen. Good. You're late, but I expected that. You don't know the academy yet. Take a seat. He climbs the stairs to find a seat, acutely aware of every eye following him. He finds an empty spot near the back and sits. The stone is cold and hard, a sharp contrast to his soft bed. Alara addresses the class. Today we begin the practical portion of your alchemical training. Most of you have spent the last 2 years studying theory. You know the formulas, the recipes, the proper procedures. Today you'll start putting that knowledge into practice. Her gaze sweeps across the students and lands on Kaelen. However, before we begin, I want to introduce you to someone who's going to challenge everything you think you know about alchemy. Kaelen has a sinking feeling he knows where this is going. Kaelen, stand up. He stands, feeling 50 pairs of eyes boring into him. Kaelen is a special student, admitted yesterday through emergency proceedings. He has no magical talent whatsoever. He has never studied alchemy formally. He cannot even read alchemical formulas. And yet in one night, he created 3 perfect potions that most of you won't be able to replicate even after months of study. She smiles at the shocked expressions around the room. Some of you are wondering how this is possible. Some of you are thinking I'm lying or exaggerating. And some of you are already hating him because he makes you feel inadequate. All of those reactions are understandable but useless. She gestures for Kaelen to come down to the demonstration area. He does, reluctantly, feeling like he's walking to an execution. Show them, Alara says. Pick someone and ask them about a minor health problem, then fix it. Kaelen looks out at the sea of hostile faces. Does anyone have a minor problem? Something small? A girl with blonde hair and an expensive-looking robe raises her hand. Her smile is cruel. I have migraines, terrible ones. I've been to every healer in the kingdom. No one can fix them. If you can cure me, I'll be impressed. When you fail, I'll know you're a fraud. What do your migraines feel like? Kaelen asks. Like lightning in my skull. The left side, mostly. They come on when I use magic for extended periods. Show me your hands. The girl descends from her seat, her movements graceful and confident. She holds out her hands. Kaelen takes them, closes his eyes, and extends his senses. He can feel her pulse, strong and steady. He can sense her magical energy, which is considerable, flowing through her channels in patterns that are wrong. Not harmful exactly, just inefficient. Her magic is trying to flow in certain patterns but encountering resistance, and that resistance causes pressure, and that pressure manifests as pain. Your magical channels aren't aligned properly, he says. It's like trying to pour water through a kinked hose. The water still flows, but it creates pressure at the kink. Every time you use magic, you're creating pressure in your head. I know that, the girl snaps. Every healer has told me that. But magical channels are set at birth. They can't be changed. They can't be changed permanently, Kaelen agrees. But they can be temporarily relaxed, allowing your body to establish new patterns. If you do it enough times, the new patterns become habit. He looks at the ingredients available in the demonstration area. There's not much, just basic components for teaching purposes. But it's enough. He takes willow bark, which most people use for pain. He adds a touch of silverweed, which most people use for stomach issues. He grinds them together, adds water, and heats the mixture while humming. Not a spell. Just a tune his mother used to hum while cooking. The result is a thin, bitter tea. He offers it to the girl. Drink this, all of it. She looks skeptical but takes the cup. The class watches in silence as she drinks. Her face contorts at the taste, but she finishes it. Then her eyes widen. The pressure is... it's gone, just gone. How? The willow bark relaxes blood vessels. The silverweed relaxes magical channels. It's temporary, maybe 4 hours. But if you drink this every day while practicing magic, your channels will slowly adjust to the new patterns. After a few months, you won't need it anymore. The girl stares at him, then at her hands, then at Alara. Is he serious? Completely, Alara says. What he just did in 5 minutes would take a master alchemist days to research and formulate, and he did it with ingredients any hedge witch could find. The class erupts in whispers. Kaelen can hear fragments. How is that possible? He has to be using magic. This is some kind of trick. But he can also see the expressions changing. The hostility is still there, but now it's mixed with curiosity, with grudging respect, with fear. This, Alara announces, is what true alchemy looks like. Not following recipes, not memorizing formulas, understanding. This boy understands ingredients at a level most of you will never reach, no matter how much you study. So I suggest you pay attention to him. Learn from him. Because if you can grasp even a fraction of his instinct, you'll be 10 times the alchemist you would be otherwise. She dismisses the class. Students file out, many of them glancing back at Kaelen with new expressions. The blonde girl lingers. Thank you, she says quietly. I've had those migraines since I was 12. 7 years of constant pain and no one could help. You fixed it in 5 minutes. It might come back, Kaelen warns. Like I said, it's temporary. Then I'll come find you for more tea. She extends her hand. I'm Solara. And I'm sorry I was rude earlier. I've been disappointed too many times. He shakes her hand, noting the calluses on her fingers. She's not just some spoiled noble. She works hard. I'm Kaelen, and you weren't rude. You were protecting yourself. I understand that. After she leaves, Alara approaches. Well done. You made an impression. Several impressions, in fact. Some good, some bad. But all memorable. I didn't mean to show off. You didn't. You simply existed, and that was enough. You're going to have a difficult time here, Kaelen. These students have been training for years. They come from money, from magical families, from the best preparatory schools. You come from nothing. They're going to resent you. Some will try to sabotage you. Some will try to use you. Very few will accept you as an equal. Then why am I here? Because you're the first person in 10,000 years to be born with the sight. Because you can do things no one else can. Because the kingdom needs people like you, whether it knows it or not. She places a hand on his shoulder. Also because I think you'll be good for these pampered idiots. You'll remind them that skill isn't about breeding or wealth or access to expensive ingredients. It's about understanding, and that's something that can't be bought. Over the next 2 months, Kaelen settles into academy life in the way a square peg settles into a round hole, which is to say, uncomfortably, and with a lot of friction. He attends classes where instructors try to teach him magical theory he can't use, and alchemical formulas he can't read. He works in laboratories alongside students who alternately mock him or pepper him with questions. He lives in a dormitory with people who have more money in their pocket than he's seen in his entire life. But he learns. Not from the classes, which are useless for someone without magic. He learns from observation. He watches how trained alchemists work, noting their precision, their discipline, their systematic approaches. He doesn't copy them, but he borrows ideas, adapting them to his own instinctive style. He also starts teaching, unofficially. Students come to him with problems, a potion that isn't working, an ingredient they can't identify, a formula that should succeed but fails. Kaelen helps them, not with magic, but with understanding. He shows them how to sense what an ingredient really is, not just what the book says it should be. He demonstrates how to tell when something is ready, not by timing, but by awareness. Solara becomes his first real friend. She's brilliant with magic, but frustrated by rigid academic teaching. She appreciates Kaelen's approach, his willingness to try things that shouldn't work. Together, they experiment with combining his instinct and her magical talent, creating potions that blend the old way and the new way. Not everyone is friendly. A guy named Draken, heir to a noble house, takes particular pleasure in making Kaelen's life difficult, sabotaging his ingredients. spreading rumors that he's actually a secret mage hiding his power, challenging him to academic contests that rely on reading skills Kaelen doesn't have. Kaelen endures it. What else can he do? He spent his life being looked down on. At least here, he has a bed and food and work that matters. He can endure some rich kids being mean to him. The turning point comes 2 months into his academy tenure. A illness sweeps through the student dormitories. Nothing fatal, but debilitating. High fever, weakness, delirium. Within 3 days, half the academy is sick. The healers do their best, but they're overwhelmed. Their potions work slowly, requiring days to take full effect, and new students keep getting sick faster than they can treat the old ones. Kaelen isn't sick. He seems immune, which some students use as evidence that he's somehow responsible. But Archmage Alara comes to him directly. Can you help? What's causing it? We don't know. It's not magical in nature, which makes it harder to treat. Some kind of infection, probably spread through the common areas. Kaelen thinks about this. An infection that spreads easily, causes fever and weakness, affects mostly young people. Can I see someone who's sick? She takes him to the infirmary, a large hall now filled with beds, everyone occupied. The smell hits him first. That particular combination of sweat and sickness that he remembers from the poor quarter. He approaches a bed where a young man lies shivering despite the blankets piled on him. Kaelen doesn't need magic to diagnose this. He's seen it before, back when he lived on the streets. It's gutter fever, he says. Spreads through contaminated water. The academy's water supply is clean, but the fountains where students wash their hands must have been contaminated by someone who was already sick. It cycles through populations in waves, hitting young adults hardest because they have strong immune systems that overreact. Can you cure it? Easily. The hard part is making enough for everyone. He looks at the rows of sick students, making calculations. I'll need help, a lot of help, and access to the academy's entire ingredient store. You'll have it. Kaelen organizes volunteers, mostly students who have already recovered or who haven't gotten sick yet. He teaches them his recipe, which is simple enough that even people without the sight can make it. Boiled water, willow bark, honey, a touch of mint to settle stomachs. Nothing fancy. Nothing that requires rare ingredients or complex techniques. But he adds one element that makes all the difference. He has his volunteers sing while they work. Not magical incantations. Just songs. Simple melodies. Because he's learned something about alchemy that the books don't teach. Intent matters. When you make medicine with the sincere desire to help, it works better. Not because of magic, but because your attention is fully present, because you're careful with every step, because you care about the result. They produce 100 doses in 6 hours, 200 by the end of the day. Every sick student receives a cup of Kaelen's simple remedy. Within hours, fevers break. Within a day, the infirmary is half empty. Within 2 days, the epidemic is over. Archmage Alara finds him in the now quiet infirmary, cleaning up. You saved lives today. I made medicine, that's all. No, that's not all. You organized volunteers, taught them your methods, managed production, and solved a crisis that could have shut down the academy for weeks. That's not just being a healer. That's being a leader. Kaelen doesn't know what to say to that. Leadership isn't something he's ever considered. Leaders are people who matter, who come from somewhere, who have the right to tell others what to do. He's just a former street vendor who got lucky. But something changes after the epidemic. Students who previously ignored him start nodding in the hallways. People he's never spoken to thank him for helping their friends. Even Draken stops actively sabotaging him, though the hostility remains. And then, 3 months after Kaelen first entered Celestera Academy, Alara summons him to her office. It's a room at the top of one of the smaller towers, lined with books that float in gentle orbits around the perimeter. She sits behind a desk made from a single slab of crystal, and her expression is serious. "Sit, Kaelen." He sits. "I'm going to tell you something that's not common knowledge. Every 5 years, Celestera Academy holds a competition to determine its next Magic Lord. The Magic Lord is not just an honorary title. It's a position of real power. The Magic Lord serves on the council, advises the king, leads research initiatives, and represents the Academy in external affairs. They're essentially the public face of everything we do here." "Okay," Kaelen says, not sure where this is going. The competition is open to all advanced students and recent graduates. 5 challenges, each designed to test different aspects of magical and alchemical ability: combat, theory, creation, teaching, and practical problem-solving. She leans forward. "The competition begins in 3 months. I want you to enter." "Me? But I've only been here 3 months. I don't have magic. I can barely read. I'd be destroyed in any kind of theoretical challenge." "Probably," Ilara agrees. "But the competition isn't just about magical power. It's about potential, about capability, about whether someone can solve problems that matter. And you, Kaelen, are better at solving real problems than anyone I've ever met. There's no way the other students would accept me as Magic Lord. They don't have to accept you, they just have to lose to you, and I think you can win." She slides a scroll across her desk. "This is the formal entry form. Think about it. You have a week to decide." Kaelen takes the scroll back to his room. He doesn't open it that night, or the next night. He spends 3 days thinking about whether this is a terrible idea, which it obviously is, and whether he should do it anyway, which he still isn't sure about. Solara settles the question for him. She comes to his room, sees the unopened scroll on his desk, and says, "If you don't enter, I'm going to be very disappointed in you." "Why? What do you care?" "Because I've watched you for 3 months. I've seen you help students who couldn't care less about you. I've seen you solve problems that stumped people with 10 times your training. I've seen you challenge everything we think we know about alchemy. And I think you deserve a chance to prove that everything this academy teaches about power and breeding and proper education is wrong." She grins. "Also, watching Draken's face when you beat him would be hilarious." So Kaelen enters the competition. He fills out the form in his clumsy handwriting, signs his name, and submits it to the registrar's office. The clerk looks at him like he's insane but accepts the form anyway. The list of competitors is posted a week later. 37 names. Kaelen recognizes most of them. Top students, graduating seniors, a few young instructors, people with magical talent that makes reality bend around them, people from families that have produced magic lords for generations, people who have been training their entire lives for this opportunity. And at the bottom of the list, in letters that look smaller than the others even though they're the same size, Kaelen, special student, no family affiliation listed. The first challenge is announced the next day. Survival. All competitors will be transported to the Ashlands, AI, region 50 miles north, where volcanic activity has made the ground hostile and the air toxic. They will have 3 days to survive and make it to a specific checkpoint. They can use magic, alchemy, or any other skills they possess. The last 10 to arrive will be eliminated. Kaelen has never been to the Ashlands. He's barely been outside the city. But he has 3 weeks to prepare, so he spends every waking moment researching. Not in books, which he can't read anyway. He talks to people. He finds an old adventurer who once explored the Ashlands and buys him dinner in exchange for information. He locates a merchant who trades in volcanic materials and learns about what plants, if any, grow in those conditions. He even tracks down a geologist who studies the region and asks approximately 1,000 questions. The other competitors spend their prep time practicing combat spells, brewing endurance potions, and gathering expensive magical equipment. Kaelen spends his time learning about an environment he's never seen, planning routes based on verbal descriptions, and preparing simple remedies for the specific challenges the Ashlands will present. When the day of the challenge arrives, all 37 competitors gather in the academy courtyard. They're transported via magical portal to the edge of the ashlands, deposited on rocky ground where the temperature is at least 30 degrees hotter than it should be, and the air tastes like metal and ash. Kaelen looks at the volcanic landscape stretching before him. Black rock, sulfurous pools, vents that emit toxic gases. This is supposed to be survivable? Most competitors immediately start running, racing to be first to the checkpoint 50 miles away. A few form groups, combining their strengths. Kaelen does neither. He walks, carefully, deliberately. Watching where he steps, observing his environment. Within hours, the first competitors start falling. Not literally falling, though some do trip and injure themselves on the sharp volcanic rock. Falling behind. Succumbing to the heat. The toxic air. The sheer hostility of the environment. Healing potions can fix injuries, but they can't fix exhaustion or heat stroke or gradual poisoning from breathing bad air. Kaelen maintains a steady pace. He doesn't run because running makes you breathe harder, and breathing harder means inhaling more toxic air. He wraps cloth around his mouth and nose, soaking it in water first to filter the air. He walks during the cooler evening and early morning hours, resting during the heat of midday in the shade of rock formations. On the second day, he starts finding competitors who have collapsed. A girl with magical talent enough to level mountains, lying unconscious because she pushed too hard and dehydrated herself. Kaelen gives her water, props her up in shade, and moves on. He's not heartless, but this is a competition. He can help people not die without helping them win. On the third day, the real test begins. The checkpoint is visible now, a flag on a distant ridge. But between Kaelen and the checkpoint is a massive field of volcanic glass, razor-sharp and nearly impossible to cross without severe injury. The competitors who are ahead of him are trying to use magic to hover over it, to create paths through it, to just brute force their way across. Kaelen studies the field for 10 minutes. Then he notices something. Where the glass is thickest, there are patches of strange purple lichen growing. The lichen, he realizes, is growing on the oldest glass. The glass that's been there longest. The glass that's been worn down by time and weather and volcanic gases. It's slightly smoother, slightly less sharp. He plots a path following the lichen patches. It's not a straight line to the checkpoint. It winds and curves, adding probably 5 miles to his journey. But it's a path he can walk without shredding his feet. Other competitors notice what he's doing and try to follow, but they don't understand the pattern. They just see him walking in a strange direction and assume he's lost. Kaelen reaches the checkpoint with 6 hours to spare. He's exhausted, covered in ash, his throat raw from breathing toxic air, even through his filter. But he's there. 7th to arrive. Well within the cutoff. Archmage Alara is waiting at the checkpoint, along with several other council members. They're watching through a scrying portal as the remaining competitors struggle across the ashlands. Interesting route you chose, Alara comments. The obvious path isn't always the best path. Indeed, 27 competitors have reached this checkpoint so far. 3 have been eliminated due to injury. The final 7 are unlikely to make it within the time limit. You passed. Kaelen finds a spot in the shade and collapses. His whole body hurts. His lungs burn. His feet are blistered even though he found the safest path. But he passed. That's what matters. The second challenge is announced a week later, giving competitors time to recover. This one is theoretical. A written examination covering magical theory, alchemical formulas, historical knowledge, and applied problem-solving. 4 hours. No reference materials allowed. Kaelen stares at the announcement and feels his stomach drop. He can't do this. He literally cannot do this. He can read maybe 1 word in 5, and even then, he reads slowly. A 4-hour written examination might as well be a 4-hour execution for someone with his limitations. Silara finds him sitting in the gardens, head in his hands. Let me guess. You're thinking about withdrawing. I can't read, Solara. I can't take a written test. Did you read the rules carefully? She grins. No, of course you didn't. Let me read them to you. The examination may be completed in written form, oral form, or practical demonstration form at the candidate's discretion. You don't have to write anything. You can do the whole thing verbally. Really? Really. They have to accommodate different learning styles. Ilara probably made sure that rule was included specifically for you. So on the day of the examination, while the other competitors sit in a large hall with quills and parchment, Kaelen sits in a small room with archmage Ilara and 2 other council members. They ask him questions. He answers them. Not with formulas or theory, but with understanding. Explain the properties of dragon scale powder. It's not actually from dragons. It's from a volcanic fish that lives in underground lava pools. The scales are calcium deposits that form as protection against heat. When ground into powder, it retains that heat-resistant property. Combine it with water, and it makes a paste that can protect against burns. Combine it with alcohol, and it becomes a fuel that burns with unusual heat. Mix it with certain oils, and it becomes explosive. How would you cure a curse of perpetual cold? First, I'd figure out what's causing the curse. Is it magical? Then you need a mage to dispel it. Is it physical, like the body not producing enough heat? Then you need herbs that stimulate metabolism. Ginger, cayenne, cinnamon. Is it psychological, like trauma manifesting as physical symptoms? Then you need therapy and time, maybe supplemented with mild calming agents. He pauses. But if you're asking me what most people would mean by a curse of cold, it's usually a parasite that lives in northern waters. It infects people and causes their body temperature to drop. The cure is high-dose bitter melon extract combined with heat treatment. What was the Plague War, and what were its major alchemical innovations? Kaelen hesitates. He doesn't know history the way educated people do. I don't know dates or names, but I know that about 300 years ago, someone created diseases as weapons, made them intentionally in laboratories, and that forced alchemists to figure out how to counter diseases they'd never seen before. They developed the principles of immune system enhancement, rapid cure creation, and preventive medicine. The war was terrible, but it advanced healing by centuries. The questioning goes on for 4 hours. Sometimes Kaelen knows the answer. Sometimes he doesn't, but can reason his way to something close. Sometimes he admits complete ignorance. But what surprises the council members is that even when he doesn't know something, his reasoning is sound. He doesn't guess wildly. He builds on what he does know to figure out what he doesn't. When the results are announced 3 days later, Kaelen places 9th. Not the highest score, but solidly in the middle. 5 competitors are eliminated. 32 remain. The noble students are shocked that a barely literate street kid scored, as well as people who have been studying theory since they were children. Draken looks like he's been personally insulted by reality. The 3rd challenge is announced immediately after the 2nd. Creation. Each competitor will be given the same list of 10 ingredients. They will have 6 hours to create something useful. Anything at all. Potions, materials, tools, weapons, anything. The creations will be judged based on innovation, effectiveness, and practical application. The ingredients list is announced and Kaelen's heart sinks. These aren't common materials. They're incredibly rare, incredibly expensive, and deliberately chosen to be difficult to work with. Storm crystal shards, phoenix ash, basilisk scales, silver moonwood, star iron, void essence, shadow silk, dawn dew, eternal ice, and wormroot. Most competitors immediately start planning potions. That's what they've been trained to do. Combine ingredients in specific ratios, following specific procedures to create predictable effects. But Kaelen looks at this list and thinks differently. These ingredients are rare and valuable. Making a potion from them seems wasteful. What if instead he made something that could be reused? Something that would last? He enters the creation workshop 6 hours before the deadline. The other competitors are already there, some of them 3 or 4 hours into their work. carefully following formulas they've researched. Kaelen clears a space for himself and lays out his ingredients. Then he does something no one expects. He doesn't follow a recipe. He doesn't even try to make a potion in the traditional sense. Instead, he makes a tool. He starts with the worm root, grinding it into a fine paste. He adds phoenix ash, which never fully cools, to give the mixture perpetual warmth. He incorporates storm crystal shards, which store and release energy. He weaves shadow silk into the mixture, creating structure. He shapes the whole thing into a pendant, a circular medallion about the size of his palm. As he works, other competitors glance over, confused. What is he making? It doesn't look like any potion they've ever seen. It's not liquid. It's not powder. It's not a traditional alchemical form at all. Kaelen sets the pendant aside to set and starts on the other ingredients. He can't let any go to waste. Star iron he shapes into small pins, embedding them with void essence to create materials that can pierce magical barriers. Dawn dew and eternal ice he combines into a solution that won't freeze or evaporate, perfect for storing volatile ingredients indefinitely. Basilisk scales he treats and polishes until they become mirrors that show not just reflection, but truth, revealing hidden properties of whatever they face. With 30 minutes left, he returns to the pendant. It's hardened now, still warm to the touch. He adds the final component: silver moonwood shavings, incorporated into the surface in delicate patterns. When he's done, he has a pendant that looks like it was grown rather than made, natural and organic despite being completely artificial. The judges come around to inspect everyone's creations. They find potions of impressive strength, elixirs with complex effects, materials with unusual properties. And then they get to Kaelen. "What is this?" asks one judge, picking up the pendant. "It's an alchemist's focus," Kaelen explains. "Wear it and it enhances your ability to sense ingredients. It helps you understand what things truly are, beneath what they appear to be. It won't give someone the sight if they don't have it, but it amplifies whatever natural perception they do have. It also stores a small amount of energy that can be used to stabilize volatile reactions, and it provides protection against alchemical mishaps by absorbing harmful substances." The judge studies the pendant, running diagnostic spells over it. This is extraordinary. This could make a mediocre alchemist twice as effective. And you said the energy storage is renewable? The phoenix ash never stops generating heat. The storm crystal stores and releases that energy in controlled amounts. As long as the pendant exists, it works. It doesn't run out. Another judge examines Kaelen's other creations: the truth mirrors, the barrier-piercing pins, the eternal storage solution. "You didn't make anything disposable. Everything here is a tool, something that can be used again and again. Ingredients this rare shouldn't be wasted on single-use items," Kaelen says. "I tried to honor them by making things that would last." When the results are announced, Kaelen places first. The pendant alone would have won him the challenge, but the other items sealed it. He created not just something powerful, but something philosophically different, a new approach to alchemy itself. Making tools instead of consumables. Creating capabilities instead of just effects. 5 more competitors are eliminated. 27 remain. The gap between Kaelen and the traditional students is widening. Some of them are starting to realize that the street kid isn't just lucky. He's actually good at this. The 4th challenge is teaching. Each competitor will be assigned 3 students with learning difficulties, magical deficiencies, or specific challenges that have made them struggle in regular classes. The competitors have 2 weeks to teach these students enough to pass a standardized test. The competitors will be judged not just on their students' scores, but on their teaching methods, their patience, and their ability to adapt to different learning styles. Kaelen is assigned 3 students. The first is a girl named Mira, who has dyslexia so severe she can't read alchemical formulas at all. The second is a boy named Tom, who has magical talent but no fine motor control, making precision work impossible. The third is a girl named Lynn, who has severe anxiety that causes her to freeze up during examinations. Other competitors look at Kaelen's assignments and feel sorry for him. These are considered 3 of the most difficult students to teach. But Kaelen looks at them and sees himself. People whom the system has failed. People who need a different approach. For Mira, he creates a completely visual system for learning alchemy. Instead of written formulas, he uses colors, shapes, and patterns. Red circles mean heat. Blue squares mean cold. Green triangles mean growth. She learns to recognize ingredients and their properties not by their names, but by what they feel like, smell like, do. For Tom, he develops techniques that don't require fine motor control. Crushing ingredients with mortars instead of chopping them precisely. Using heat gradients instead of exact temperatures. Working with larger quantities that don't demand perfect measurement. Most importantly, he shows Tom that precision isn't the only path to success. Intuition and understanding can compensate for physical limitations. For Lynn, he creates an environment without pressure. They work in a small, quiet room. He never times her. He never tests her formally. Instead, they just talk. He asks her what she thinks an ingredient will do before she uses it, building her confidence in her own judgment. When she makes mistakes, he treats them as learning opportunities rather than failures. 2 weeks later, at the standardized test, all 3 of Kaelen's students pass. Not just pass, but score in the top 20%. Mira can now identify ingredients and their interactions faster than many students who can read perfectly. Tom has developed creative techniques that are actually more efficient than traditional methods. Lynn, in the supportive environment Kaelen created, doesn't freeze at all. She's calm, confident, methodical. The judges are astounded. Teaching difficult students is supposed to be about damage control, about getting them to a minimum passing standard. Kaelen didn't just get them to pass, he made them excel. And he did it by changing the system to fit the students instead of forcing the students to fit the system. He places second in this challenge, just barely behind an instructor who's been teaching for 15 years. But the gap is close enough that everyone knows it could have gone either way. 5 more competitors are eliminated. 22 remain. The competition is entering its final phase, and that's when the sabotage starts. Someone breaks into Kaelen's room and steals his wormroot plant. The plant that's been his constant companion since the old woman gave him the seed. The plant that he's tended and cared for, and that's helped him create dozens of remedies. It's just gone. He reports it to the academy authorities, but what can they do? Investigate 30,000 students looking for a stolen plant? There's no proof, no evidence, just a missing plant, and Kaelen's word that it existed. But it gets worse. Someone spreads a rumor that Kaelen has been cheating, using illegal magical items to enhance his abilities. The rumor claims his pendant, the alchemist's focus he created during the competition, is actually an ancient artifact he found and is pretending he made. People start looking at him with suspicion. Then someone poisons the food in the dining hall with a substance that causes mild hallucinations. Nothing deadly, but enough to make dozens of students sick. And because Kaelen is known for making medicines, some people start suggesting he did it. Why would he poison food? To create demand for his cures, obviously. It's ridiculous, but enough people believe it that Kaelen starts getting hostile looks in the corridors. Silara stands by him. Ignore them. They're scared because you're winning. They're trying to undermine you before the final challenge. It's working, Kaelen says bitterly. Even if I win the competition, nobody will accept me as Magic Lord if they think I'm a cheat or a poisoner. Then prove them wrong, win so decisively that there's no question. The final challenge is announced. Practical problem solving. The Shadowfall Reach, a region in the far north, has been experiencing a crisis. A strange blight is affecting the crops, the water is becoming toxic, and people are getting sick. No one knows what's causing it. Magic hasn't helped. Traditional healing hasn't helped. The kingdom has sent experts, but they've all failed to identify the source of the problem, let alone fix it. The final 22 competitors will travel to Shadowfall Reach. They will have 1 week to diagnose the problem and present a solution. The competitors who most effectively address the crisis will advance. The rest will be eliminated. After this challenge, only 3 competitors will remain, and those 3 will face one final test to determine the Magic Lord. This is it. This is the challenge that will determine everything. Kaelen travels north with the other competitors on a magical transport ship that flies through the air. He's never flown before. It's terrifying and exhilarating, and he tries not to show that he's gripping his seat hard enough to leave marks. Shadowfall Reach is a small farming community, built around a river that flows down from the northern mountains. Or it was. Now it's a dying community. The fields are brown and withered even though it's the growing season. The river runs gray with sediment. The people look hollow-eyed and weak. The competitors disperse into the community, each taking different approaches. Some immediately start testing the water with magical diagnostics. Some examine the crops looking for diseases or pests. Some interview the sick people trying to find common factors. It's organized chaos. Kaelen does something different. He walks. Not through the fields or to the river. He walks to the edge of the community, where the wilderness begins. He's learned that when something goes wrong in nature, the cause is often outside the obvious area. Animals avoid problems instinctively, moving away from danger. So if you want to find danger, you follow where the animals aren't. He walks for 2 days, moving steadily into the hills north of the community. Other competitors have given up searching and started proposing solutions based on incomplete information. But Kaelen keeps walking, keeps observing, keeps looking for what doesn't fit. On the 3rd day, he finds it. A mine. An old one, abandoned probably decades ago. The entrance has partially collapsed, and vines have grown over much of it. Most people would walk right past without noticing. But Kaelen sees the way the plants around the mine entrance are stunted and discolored. He sees the trickle of water seeping out from under the collapsed entrance, water that's faintly orange with dissolved metals. He follows that trickle. It runs downhill, joining a stream, which joins another stream, which eventually flows into the river that supplies Shadowfall Reach. The mine is leaking toxic runoff into the water supply, and that toxic water is being used to irrigate crops and supply the community. Not enough toxicity to kill quickly, but enough to slowly poison everything it touches. Kaelen makes his way into the partially collapsed mine. It's dangerous, and he has to crawl through sections where the ceiling has dropped to within a few feet of the floor. But he pushes forward until he reaches the source, an underground pond where water has collected, dissolving minerals from the rock, creating a toxic soup that's been building for decades. He returns to Shadowfall Reach covered in dirt, his clothes torn, his hands scraped raw. The other competitors have already started presenting their solutions. Purify the water with magic. Replace the soil in the fields. Import food until the crops recover. All reasonable ideas. All treating symptoms rather than the actual problem. When it's Kaelen's turn to present, he stands before the judges and the community leaders and explains what he found. The old mine, the toxic pond, the contaminated water flowing into the river. Every problem the community faces traces back to this single source. The solution is simple, he says. We need to neutralize the toxic pond. I can't do it with magic, but I can do it with chemistry. We need to introduce specific compounds that will bind with the dissolved metals and cause them to precipitate out of solution. Then we need to seal the mine properly so no more contamination occurs. Finally, we need to clean the river, which will take time, but can be done by introducing filtering plants that absorb metals and then harvesting those plants regularly. A community leader raises her hand. How long will this take? To neutralize the pond? 2 days of work. To seal the mine? Another 2 days if we have the right materials. To clean the river? Months. but the water will start improving within weeks. The crops will recover on their own once they're no longer being irrigated with poison. One of the judges asks, "What compounds will you use to neutralize the pond?" Kaelen explains his recipe, a combination of limestone, charcoal, and certain plants that absorb metals. Simple ingredients, things that can be found locally or bought, cheaply. No rare materials, no complex magic, just basic chemistry applied correctly. The judges confer. Then they announce that Kaelen's solution will be implemented immediately. Not as a test, as the actual fix, because it's the only solution that addresses the root cause. Over the next 4 days, Kaelen works with volunteers from the community and some of the other competitors who realize his approach is correct. They haul limestone and charcoal up the hills. They lower it into the toxic pond using ropes and pulleys. They seal the mine entrance with rocks and clay and a special cement mixture that will last for centuries. They plant filtering vegetation along the riverbank. It works. Within a week, the water starts running clearer. Within 2 weeks, the first new growth appears in the fields. The sick people begin recovering. Kaelen places first in the challenge. Not even close. His solution was complete, practical, and sustainable. 5 competitors are eliminated, 17 remain. But before the next challenge can be announced, something happens that changes everything. The academy comes under attack. It starts with an explosion in the western tower, a blast powerful enough to shatter crystal walls and send debris raining down onto the courtyards below. Alarms sound throughout the complex. Guards rush to defensive positions. Students evacuate to secure areas. Kaelen is in his room when it happens. The explosion rocks the building, throwing him out of bed. He grabs his emergency pack, the one he's kept since his street days, a habit he's never lost. Inside, basic medical supplies, some preserved food, his knives, and a few vials of his most useful remedies. He makes his way to the courtyard, joining the stream of students and instructors heading for the safe zones. But something makes him stop. A smell on the wind. A familiar smell. He's smelled it before, in the poor quarter, during the epidemic. That particular combination of chemicals that indicates poison in the air. He shouts a warning, but the crowd is too panicked to hear him. People are breathing in the contaminated air, and within minutes, they'll start showing symptoms. He needs to act fast. He runs against the flow of people, heading not toward safety but toward the damaged tower. Other competitors see him and think he's crazy. One of them, a girl named Vera, who placed third in the last challenge, yells at him, "Wrong way! The attack came from there!" "I know," he shouts back. "That's why I'm going." He reaches the base of the western tower. The explosion blew out several floors, leaving a gaping wound in the crystalline structure. Smoke and toxic gas are pouring from the opening. Kaelen can see bodies inside, people caught in the initial blast. Some are moving, some aren't. He covers his face with his shirt, soaks it with water from his canteen, and climbs into the devastation. The heat is incredible. The air is almost unbreathable even with the wet cloth. But he pushes forward, finding survivors, dragging them out one by one. On his third trip in, he finds the source of the attack. A device, some kind of alchemical bomb, still smoldering. And standing next to it, preparing to activate a second device, is someone wearing a black cloak covered in symbols that make Kaelen's eyes hurt to look at. The person turns, and Kaelen recognizes the face beneath the hood. It's one of the eliminated competitors. Someone who failed the survival challenge. Someone who should have left the academy weeks ago. "You shouldn't be here," the person hisses. Their voice sounds wrong, like multiple voices speaking at once. "Neither should you," Kaelen manages. The toxic air is affecting him despite his filter. His vision is blurring. "What are you doing?" "Proving a point. This academy represents everything wrong with the kingdom. Power hoarded by the elite. Knowledge kept from those who need it. They decide who gets to learn, who gets to advance, who who gets to matter. The person's hand hovers over the second bomb. They rejected me, eliminated me, deemed me unworthy. So I'm showing them what happens when you reject the wrong person. You're killing innocent people. There are no innocent people here. Everyone at this academy is part of the system that keeps people like us down. People like you should understand that. You've been looked down on your entire life. Why do you defend them? Kaelen thinks about this as his lungs burn and his vision continues to deteriorate. Why does he defend them? Many of these people have treated him terribly. They've mocked him, sabotaged him, spread rumors about him. They come from wealth and privilege, and they'll never truly understand his life. But he also thinks about Solara, who became his friend despite having every reason not to. About Mira, Tom, and Lynn, who he helped learn in ways the system had failed to support. About the students whose migraines he's cured, whose anxiety he's eased, whose confidence he's built. About Archmage Alara, who saw his potential and gave him a chance when no one else would. I defend them, he says slowly, because they're people. Flawed people. People who are part of a broken system. But also people who can learn, who can change, who deserve the chance to be better. What you're doing won't fix anything. It'll just create more victims. The person laughs, that horrible multiple-voice laugh. You're naive. This system can't be fixed. It can only be destroyed and rebuilt. Maybe, Kaelen admits, but not like this. Not by killing people. He doesn't have magic. He doesn't have weapons. What he has is chemistry knowledge and a burning need to stop this person before they activate that second bomb. So he does the only thing he can think of. He throws one of his vials. It's a simple mixture. Concentrated capsaicin extract, the compound that makes peppers hot, mixed with volatile alcohol. Packed in a glass vial that shatters on impact. When it hits the floor between them, it creates a cloud of burning, choking vapor that makes tear gas look like perfume. Both Kaelen and the attacker are affected, but Kaelen was expecting it. He covered his eyes just before impact. The attacker wasn't ready. They stumble back, clawing at their face, losing their grip on the bomb trigger. Kaelen lunges forward through the cloud of pain, grabs the bomb, and throws it out the shattered tower wall. It detonates in midair, a massive explosion that would have collapsed the entire tower if it had gone off inside. Guards arrive moments later, drawn by the second explosion. They find Kaelen and the attacker both gasping for air, both temporarily blinded by the capsaicin, both barely conscious. They're both arrested. Kaelen spends 2 days in a cell before they figure out what actually happened. The story is pieced together from evidence, from witnesses, from the attacker's confession once they realize the game is over. The whole plot, a terrorist cell called the Shadow Covenant, dedicated to destroying magical institutions. The eliminated competitor was one of theirs, a plant sent to get inside the academy and strike from within. Kaelen is released with apologies. He's also given a commendation for stopping the attack. But the academy has changed. The attack killed 3 students and 2 instructors. Dozens more were injured. Trust has been shattered. Security has been increased to almost paranoid levels. And the competition? It's postponed, indefinitely. Maybe cancelled, no one knows. Kaelen spends the next month in a strange limbo. He continues to attend classes, continues to help students, continues to work in the laboratories. But the energy is gone. The joy. The competition that gave him purpose has been taken away by someone else's violence. Then Archmage Alara summons him to her office. Sit, she says, and he does. The council has made a decision regarding the competition. We're not continuing it. The attack disrupted everything too severely, and frankly, the political situation is too unstable right now. She sees his face fall and holds up a hand. However, the council has also made another decision. We're appointing you as Magic Lord. Kaelen's mind goes blank. What? You've proven yourself beyond any doubt. You survived the Ashlands. You scored well on theoretical knowledge despite your limitations. You created revolutionary new tools. You taught struggling students better than experienced instructors. You solved a crisis that baffled experts. And you stopped a terrorist attack. What more do you need to prove? But the other competitors are angry, yes. Some are threatening to protest. Some are calling it unfair. And you know what? Let them. Because at the end of the day, the Magic Lord isn't chosen to make competitors happy. The Magic Lord is chosen to serve the kingdom and the academy, and you're the best person for that position. I don't know how to be Magic Lord. I don't know how to advise the king or lead research initiatives or do any of the things you said the position requires. You'll learn, just like you learned alchemy, just like you learned to navigate this academy, just like you learned to teach. She smiles. Besides, you won't be alone. The council will support you. I'll support you. And I think you'll surprise yourself with what you're capable of. The formal appointment happens a week later. It's a ceremony in the main hall, witnessed by the entire academy. Kaelen stands before the council in robes that still feel too fine, too clean, too unlike him. Ilara recites the traditional words, asking if he swears to uphold the principles of the academy, to serve the kingdom with wisdom and integrity, to pursue knowledge for the betterment of all people. He swears. She places the medallion of office around his neck. It's heavy, ceremonial, worth more than everything Kaelen has ever owned combined. And it feels wrong somehow. Like he's wearing someone else's clothes, living someone else's life. But then he looks out at the assembled students and instructors, and he sees faces he recognizes. Silara, grinning so wide it looks like her face might split. Mira, Tom, and Lynn, sitting together, the students he taught now confident and capable. The volunteers who helped him in Shadowfall Reach. The patients he's healed, the people he's helped, the lives he's touched. And he realizes something. This isn't someone else's life. This is his life. He earned this. Not through breeding or wealth or magical power. Through understanding. Through caring. Through refusing to accept that his circumstances defined his worth. The speech he's supposed to give is written out for him, but he can't read it anyway. So he speaks from the heart. I don't have a fancy speech prepared. I can barely read, and I'm still getting used to sleeping in a real bed. 6 months ago, I was cooking garbage in an alley and hoping I wouldn't starve. Now I'm Magic Lord of Celestera Academy, which is insane and honestly still doesn't feel real. I'm not going to pretend I'm the best person for this position. I'm not the smartest person here. I'm not the most talented. I'm not even close to the most educated. What I am is someone who understands what it's like to be overlooked, to be dismissed, to be told you don't matter because of where you came from or what you can't do. And I promise you, as Magic Lord, I'm going to change that. We're going to change that. Because knowledge shouldn't be a privilege of the wealthy. Healing shouldn't be available only to those who can afford it. Education shouldn't be limited to people who fit a certain mold. I don't know if I'll be a good Magic Lord, but I promise I'll try. I promise I'll work harder than anyone has ever worked in this position. I promise I'll remember where I came from and fight for everyone who's still there, still struggling, still hoping for a chance. The hall is silent for a moment. Then someone starts clapping. It's Silara. Then others join. Not everyone. Some students sit with arms crossed, faces tight with resentment. But enough people clap that it fills the hall with sound, and Kaelen feels something he's never felt before. Not just acceptance. Possibility. He spends the next 3 months transforming the academy. He creates new programs for students who don't fit traditional learning styles. He establishes a fund to support talented students who can't afford tuition. He opens the ingredient stores to anyone working on practical applications that help people. He starts a mentorship program pairing struggling students with successful ones. Not everyone likes these changes. There's resistance from traditionalists who think he's lowering standards. There are nobles who complain that their children are being forced to associate with commoners. There are instructors who resent being told to change methods they've used for decades. But there are also victories. A young girl from a farming village, someone who would never have been able to attend Celestara, gets admitted on merit scholarship. A boy with a magical disability that prevents him from casting spells learns to succeed through alchemy instead. A group of students develops a cheap, effective water purification system that could save thousands of lives in poor communities. Kaelen sits in his office, which is much too grand and much too large for someone who used to live in an alley, and thinks about the old woman who started all this. The mysterious woman who gave him a seed and told him he had the sight. He never learned her name. He never saw her again. But she changed his life completely. Sometimes he wonders if she's still alive, if she's somewhere watching him, satisfied with what he's become. Or maybe she's dead, and this was her final gift to the world, finding someone who could carry on what she believed in. He plants a new worm root in the Academy's greenhouse. He tends it carefully, remembering all the lessons the first plant taught him, about patience, about understanding, about how the most valuable things in life can't be rushed or forced. One day, Sylara comes to visit. She's graduated now, working as a healer in the city, using the techniques Kaelen taught her to help people who can't afford traditional magical healing. They sit in his garden, drinking tea made from wormroot leaves, and she asks the question he's been avoiding. "Are you happy?" Kaelen thinks about this. Happy. Such a strange concept for someone who spent most of his life just trying to survive. "I don't know if happy is the right word. I'm content. I'm doing work that matters. I'm helping people. I'm changing things that need to be changed. But I also miss the simplicity sometimes. Miss cooking in my stall. Miss having no responsibilities beyond getting through another day." "You could give it up," Sylara points out. "Resign. Go back to a simpler life." "I could, but I won't. Because there are too many people counting on me. Too many changes that still need to happen. Too many kids like I was who need someone to tell them they matter." "That's very noble of you." "It's not noble. It's necessary. The world doesn't need more heroes. It needs more people who remember what it's like to be helpless and work to make sure others don't have to feel that way." They sit in comfortable silence for a while. Then Sylara says, "You know what the best part of your story is?" "What?" "You didn't have a prophecy. You didn't have a secret birthright. You didn't have some hidden power that suddenly awakened. You were just a guy who could cook, who understood ingredients, who cared about helping people. And that was enough. That's always been enough." Kaelen smiles. "Are you saying I'm not special?" "I'm saying you're exactly as special as anyone else who chooses to care and work hard, which is to say, very special indeed." She stands up, brushing off her robes. "I have to go. Patients to see. But same time next week?" "Same time next week." After she leaves, Kaelen stays in the garden, watching his wormroot plant sway in the breeze, its purple leaves catching the afternoon light. He thinks about everything that's happened. The old woman's gift. The first hesitant experiments. The epidemic. The competition. The attack. His appointment. The changes he's making. It's been 6 months since he became Magic Lord. 6 months of constant work. Constant challenges, constant pressure. But also 6 months of seeing real change happen. Of watching students succeed who the old system would have failed. Of healing people who couldn't afford expensive magic. Of proving that alchemy isn't about following rules, it's about understanding. A messenger arrives with news from the king. There's a problem in the western provinces. A plague. No one can cure it. The king requests the Magic Lord's assistance. Kaelen reads the message, and he smiles. Because this is what he's for. This is what he's good at. Not sitting in offices or attending ceremonies or dealing with academy politics. solving problems, helping people, making medicines that work. He gathers his supplies, his knives, his vials, his notes, his wormroot cuttings. He's going back into the field, back to the work he loves, back to the reason he agreed to be Magic Lord in the first place. As he prepares to leave, he passes by his old room, the one he stayed in when he first arrived at the academy. On impulse, he goes inside. It's been cleaned out, ready for another student. All traces of him are gone. But he stands there for a moment, remembering the first night he spent here, unable to believe he had a real bed, a real room, a real chance. He was so scared then. Scared he'd fail. Scared he'd be exposed as a fraud. Scared he didn't belong. And maybe he was right to be scared. Maybe he didn't belong. Not in the traditional sense. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the academy needed someone who didn't belong. Someone who could see its flaws because he'd experienced them. Someone who could change it because he had nothing to lose. Kaelen leaves the academy on a sunny morning, setting out for the western provinces, ready to face whatever challenge awaits him there. He's not the Magic Lord anyone expected. He's not the hero from the stories. He's just a guy who used to cook garbage in an alley and discovered he had a gift for understanding how things work together. But sometimes, that's exactly what the world needs. Someone who remembers being nothing and uses that memory to lift others up. Someone who turns poverty into purpose, struggle into strength, exclusion into innovation. The old woman was right. He had the sight. Not magic. Just understanding. And in a world obsessed with power and prestige, understanding might be the most valuable gift of all. And if you're out there right now, feeling like you don't belong, like you're not special, like you'll never amount to anything because of where you started, remember Kaelen's story. Remember that the greatest powers don't come from magic or birthright or prophecy. They come from understanding, from caring, from refusing to accept that your circumstances define your potential. Because maybe, just maybe, you have the sight too, and you just haven't discovered it yet. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. There are so many more stories just like this one waiting to be told. Stories about underdogs who rise, about systems that change, about people who prove that where you start doesn't determine where you end up. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's continue this journey together. Because every great story deserves to be shared, and every person deserves to know that they matter, regardless of what the world tells them.